So the title of this is Who the Heck is Thor? And you'll see why in just a minute. So, yeah, in that introduction, you can kind of see who I am. I'm also a certified sound healer and a certified Reiki master. And yeah, I do energy work and do remote viewing for a lot of other people besides law enforcement. I also assist investigators, paranormal UFO investigators who might want some information about a case. I can remote view that for you in just a few minutes by phone or email. So I've had a lifetime of contact with an extraterrestrial and actually more than one, but one main one. And of course, he gave me a job to do. So, just some background info about me. My mother and father were both what you would call intuitive. They had high IQs. My father had a very high genius level IQ, as did their parents on both sides of the family. I We all knew I had unique abilities by age 3 or before, but I was never discouraged from practicing psychic work or seeing things. My parents simply listened to me and said, okay. They didn't have an explanation for everything I was seeing, but they didn't discourage it or tell me that that shouldn't be done. So I think that combined with some assistance from Thor increased my abilities. Later on, I became a remote viewer. I am able to do some telekinesis, do energy work, and have communications with interdimensional beings of all types. In 1968, my father sat down at the dinner table and told us a fantastic story. He said that he had lunch with the RLDS church elders in Independence, Missouri, and they were trying to figure out how to build a gigantic antenna that would not be noticeable to the public, and they discussed constructing a new building with the antenna inside. The purpose was to contact extraterrestrials. We all thought that was crazy, and so did he. And there's a reason I am telling you this story. So remember that. Okay. I came in contact with Val Thor in 1985 under strange circumstances, but later realized that he has been in my life since childhood. So as a child, I would hear a voice. It was his voice, very nice, calm, gentle voice, telling me to pay attention to something or go a different way or whatever. And I just thought that everybody had that happen to them. I didn't think it was anything unusual and was always, for something good. My first direct contact was in 1985 in Seattle, Washington, where I was living at the time with my brother and my two young daughters. My first contact, I visited my regular massage therapist in the winter of 1985. I had had a car accident the year before, had some back problems, and I would visit him uh, on a regular basis, and I would clean his house in exchange for having a massage. Well, I knew him very well, but that day my back was hurting really bad, and my brother and my two kids came with me, and my brother actually did the house cleaning for the massage therapist, and then I had my massage. We're getting ready to leave, putting on our coats, and the therapist said to me in a strange voice, would you like to try a light experiment? Well, my spidey sense went up, and I knew immediately that something was going on because it wasn't him talking. It was something else speaking through him. But I didn't connect it with this other voice I'd heard over the years yet. So I said, yes, I'll definitely try a light experiment. So he had me look at a green light and then a red light for a couple of minutes, back and forth several times. And of course, my brother and my two kids are doing that too because they're standing right there. The therapist then said to me, now what do you see? And I looked up to look at him, and what I saw was only him standing there, only his skeleton standing there, and nothing else. And I'm trying to process looking at this skeleton standing there. I knew it was him, and then I was only seeing the skeleton when suddenly Thor said to me, okay, I'm good. I got this reversed, but I recognize the voice, and this is me when I'm about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. So next, a head with an M-shaped helmet appeared on the wall above the bookcases, and this person said, "I am Thor, and now you have X-ray vision." And then he said he'd be in contact with me and he'd be working with me in the future. And then he was just gone. So what it looked like was kind of like this. I had a friend of mine do this sketch because I'm a terrible artist. He had a bookcase, and on the shelf were these two lights, and here's his skeleton just standing there looking at me, and then Thor's head, only a head on the wall, is, spoke to me. So I turned to my brother and my two kids and I said, "Did you guys see that?" And they said, "See what?" They didn't see or hear anything. And then the massage therapist was back to his normal self as if nothing had happened, and he was not aware that anything happened. So although I was psychic at the time and I could see energy fields, I had no idea what X-ray vision meant or what was to come until accidentally discovering it or reading someone later. And so I discovered that now I could see very clearly inside the human body, which was better than an MRI or a CAT scan. And whereas before, when I would do reading, I would see maybe an area of like a red blob where there was inflammation, or a dark black area if there was some place that was not functioning at all or had cancer or something where it had shut down. Now I could actually see what I was looking at and then go inside the organs as well. So I believe that light experiment that activated this ability. So now I was able to do intuitive medical diagnosis, and I helped several chiropractors and one doctor and thousands of individuals by being able to do this medical diagnosis. And of course, I always say this is for entertainment purposes only because I'm not a licensed health professional. I later discovered that I could see at a cellular level as well. Now, I may not know what I'm looking at, but I'll know if something's there that's not supposed to be there, and it will present itself to me so I can see it and describe it. And then later, and sometimes I might get a name or I might get a letter, and then I could look it up later to see what it is. In fact, I just did a reading this morning for a woman whose son became suddenly mentally ill, just out of the blue, and was taken to a mental hospital. And she asked me to read because they did not know what the problem was or how this suddenly came on. And I saw little tiny white balls in his brain, very tiny, but they were blocking neurons. They were, just blocking receptors. And so I said, whatever it is starting with a C, because I could see this big C come up and very clearly see these little tiny white balls. Well, I got off the phone with her. I told her that I would do some research to see if I could possibly find anything that might fit that. And I looked it up, and within 5 minutes, I had an answer. And it is a parasite that looks like a little white puff ball, and it can cause mental illness and psychosis. And the name for this condition starts with a C. Well, I can't pronounce it, but anyway, just found that out today. It's things like that are just sound a little crazy, but yeah. So also I can see inside vehicles, machinery, or buildings. And as far as vehicles go, I've used that a lot. We own a contracting business with, a fleet, and, every once in a while a vehicle breaks down or something goes wrong. If nobody can figure it out, they come to me. I mean, my whole crew knows what to do. They come to me and I will remote view it. I will locate the problem, exactly where it is. I might not know what it is, but I know what it looks like. And I'll describe that. And sure enough, every single time, either one of my men have been able to fix the problem, or if we take it into the shop, we just tell them what to do and they are able to fix it. Now, as far as buildings are concerned, yes, I've remote viewed a number of buildings, especially when doing like a missing persons case or a car theft case, something like that. But there's one thing I don't do, and I know this question is going to come up. I do not look at top secret locations. I tried it once and I will not do it again because they either have remote viewers that are watching and guarding the place, or they've developed a technology where they know if somebody is coming in and they have trackers. So I know that's going on. I am not going to do it. So a couple of days after seeing Thor for the first time, my brother asked me to do a reading for him. And I have my eyes closed when I do a reading. And I heard Thor's voice say, "Open your eyes." So I did. And on the wall of my apartment was this 2-foot tall head, was him again. And he said he would show me his craft the next night at a UFO meeting we were going to in Seattle. And I was all excited about seeing the craft and thinking that everybody in our UFO meeting group, they would be able to see that as well. So we're having the meeting, and at this particular place happened to be up a tall hill in Seattle and overlooked a big area. And they had a big picture window in the living room where we were all seated. There were about maybe 12 of us there. And I see these lights outside and took a closer look, and here comes this UFO, just comes down and it hovers above the neighbor's yard across the street and across the street as well. I'd say it was maybe 60 feet in diameter, had lights going around in a circle, blue, red, white. And I'm thinking everybody else is seeing this, but no, only one other person sensed that something was there. She said, "I know something's here. We just couldn't see it." So it was just for me to see that craft. And that was probably a scout craft because it was so small. And then began to see more craft. Now, I do want to go back just a little bit because my first sighting was at age 17. We were driving for vacation with my little brother and sister in the back seat. My mother was in the passenger seat, and I'm driving. Of course, I'm 17. I want to drive, right? So we're headed down 35 highway going through Oklahoma, and all of a sudden somebody says, "What is that over to the right?" Well, it was a big, long, cigar-shaped silver object with no wings or tail on it, no windows, close, I would say maybe 1,000 feet, and maybe 500 to 1,000 feet in height. And it paced us. So I would slow down the car and it slowed down. I'd speed up and it would speed up. And the next thing we knew, now this was in the middle of the afternoon, 3 or 4 p.m. when this happened, very sunny and bright outside. All of a sudden it's dark and we're pulling up to a motel. And we were all confused. We were kind of dazed. We didn't know what happened, how we got there. And we just, went to sleep and then got up in the morning and left and never talked about it. We didn't talk about it for years. We didn't even remember that it happened. And of course, you guys all know that this is pretty common among abductees. So I just wanted to mention that. And of course, many since then. But in August 85, I took my kids and brother out to the country to watch the Perseid meteor shower. And this was again in Seattle. And we got more than we bargained for there. We just wanted to see meteors. And I don't know if this is going to work because I just tried it a minute ago and it didn't. But yeah, what it was, we saw this, what we thought was a satellite moving overhead at a pretty fast clip, as they do. And then all of a sudden it just stopped. And we're like, what the heck is that? Well, there's another one right behind it, same pace, and it met up with it and stopped. And then 3 more. So 5 in total. But the minute the last one got there, I mean, the split second it got there, it joined with the others and they shot off to the right at a 90-degree angle. And my two girls and my brother and I got our stuff and got in the car and left because we knew that that wasn't anything of ours. And then 85, that might have even been Thor, who knows? 85 to 2000, Thor continued to be in contact with me, usually while I was in a meditative state or concentrating on something. So, as you know, if you're doing something repetitively or maybe even driving, you go into a light hypnotic state, and that's when the contact would happen. So he encouraged me to continue practicing my psychic abilities and to study also science, astronomy, physics, color, music, meditation, consciousness, and energy. This was always done telepathically. I went back to school in 1983 and discovered something very strange. All of a sudden, all of these left brain subjects were now fairly easy for me to understand, but going through life, through most of my life, that wasn't the case. It was like I had a veil over me, keeping me from using my left brain. All of a sudden, I was able to do it and with ease. So, something happened. Then in 2001, things changed again. I had a visit from my grandfather, who as a medium, I have been able to speak with hundreds or thousands of deceased people for other persons, but I was never able to contact my grandfather, who died in 1972. And it was very frustrating to me. But one night I was asleep. It was about 3 a.m. in the morning, and I hear his voice. And of course, it was in his Italian Brooklyn accent. He says, "Margie, get up." And I sat up in bed and I just thought, I did not just hear that. So I started to lie back down, and he says in a real firm voice, "Margie, get up, go downstairs to the computer." And I'm like, oh my gosh. And the voice was coming from the door to my bedroom in the upper level of my house, where a lot of strange things have come in and out. It's like a little portal. So I did what he said. I got up, went down to the computer, and he followed me. I could sense his presence to my left, right behind me. And he said, "Start typing." So he's speaking and I'm transcribing, I'm typing, and I kind of went into a trance state. And I didn't even remember or know what he was saying, but afterwards I had 3 pages of information. And so then I realized that automatic typing is real, and you can do it, either automatic writing or typing. So he told me that he had been very busy and he had not been able to contact me until then. He said he sits on a council of 13 that oversees a certain group of people, but he didn't tell me who they were. He told me that he would be introducing me to 12 people who sat on the council. I said, okay. So the first one he introduced me to was actually an ancient native Indian from India. And he said he lived on the planet about 30,000 years ago. 30,000 years ago. And he will occasionally, if I'm in a meeting with people and we're doing readings for each other or something, he will occasionally come in, ask to step into my body, and channel through me and speak through me. And he does so in an ancient native language. And let me back up, was his first incarnation was in India. Then he went to Canada and was a native there. And that was his last incarnation. So he speaks in this native language, which of course I didn't understand. The first time it happened, a friend of mine was there, Judy White Wolf, and her sister. They're both Cherokee. They took a recording, and then after this happened, they took the recording to 2 different shaman who listened to it, and translated it. They said it was difficult to translate because it was so old, but they did get the gist. And basically, they each said the same thing. Now, I want to back up here because while he's channeling through me, I could see a vision of the Missouri River and the Mississippi River, an earthquake happening, and a massive flood coming in to the state of Missouri. At least from my vantage point. It was probably, elsewhere as well, but definitely coming in. And I saw all the bridges on the Mississippi River going down, and Memphis, St. Louis, all gone, basically. All the old buildings are down. A major disaster. And he said, and this voice said, actually, he didn't say. He showed me a map and a line of direction. And the direction was move north and west. So South Dakota, Montana, going north and west away from this area where I am right now, Kansas City. And so nobody knew that. And then the translations came back. And the main translation was, at the time of the great shaking, it will be where the two angry rivers meet. Missouri, Mississippi. So, that was my first experience. Then I was introduced by my grandfather to White Cloud. Now, White Cloud was a Native American. He did live as a human being. And then the mantis being was introduced to me. Now, this is like a 7-foot tall mantis. And he showed me what happened in past lives with White Cloud. And I was his protege. He taught me shamanism. And this is back in, I believe, the 1100s in the Native American plains north of where I am. And so eventually I took over and I became known as Medicine Woman. Well, then he showed me a time when I went on a vision quest and went up to the top of a mountain, and I was by myself. He appears and a craft appears to my right. He asked if I wanted to go with him on the craft to see his planet, and he would bring me back. So I said, okay. So we go in this craft, and very, very quickly, probably through a wormhole, we're at another planet. Now, I should also mention here that many years ago, I started a new company. I became obsessed with crystals, and I started a new company called Crystal Planet, and I had business cards made, and my intention was to go mine crystals in Arkansas, which I did, and then sell them. But I never sold one. I keep them or give them away. But anyway, so he takes me to this planet. As we're approaching the planet, I see that it is completely covered in smooth crystal, and they call it the Crystal Planet. So I'm amazed at this. A door opens, we go inside, and then they seat me in a chair in a room that has crystal walls that you can see through. Now, this mantis is in the room with me, but he's the only one who can be, because I just know that he can handle the same atmosphere that I can, and they put me in this area, so that I would have the right oxygen and all that, while they were outside. So there were 12 of them in this circle, and each of them had an object in their hand that looked like a little laser pen. And they shined the pen through this crystal to me, to my physical body, but most of it was to my light bodies. So we have one physical body, we have 6 light bodies. And they were planting something in there that would become active at later dates. So if this happened in the 1100s, this activation has been occurring over many, many generations and many lifetimes, as I'm ready for it. One of the things was the light experiment, looking at the lights that activated one of these seeds that they put in me. So, and it goes on. Um, Also, the number 1111 began showing up for me in 2001, just before 9/11. And at first I attributed it to that. And then I later did some research and I found out that 11 is the master number, as are 22 and 33, but they're multiples of 11. So 1111 is a master number. It's a high consciousness, high vibration level. Everybody has their own number, by the way. If you see numbers repeat all the time, those are your numbers. Pay attention to it and look up the meaning of that number, because there's a reason that it's showing up for you. Okay. Thor told me that I'd be writing a book about him, but first I needed to do a few things. First, I started KUNX magazine, and then also have conferences and meet others who had been in contact with him. I had a shop on the Independence Square in Missouri, and one evening in May, my daughter called to say I needed to see some strange clouds on Lexington Avenue. So I raced down there, had my cell phone ready, and as I'm going past this Church of Christ Temple, which, by the way, this is a spiral, okay, does not fit with the architecture in Independence at all. This is ultra modern building. Remember what my dad said about a huge antenna hidden inside of a building? Well, when I moved to Independence and saw that, when I moved back from Seattle, I just said to myself, oh my gosh, Dad was right. But here we have very low clouds, and there was an electrical storm and weird lights in the storm with no rain or thunder going on, just these lights inside the clouds. And oddly, there was one cloud that came down. It had a perfectly rounded shape with distinct edges that had covered up almost the entire temple, maybe 20 feet off the ground. And so I pulled over and I got my phone out and I was able to snap a couple of pictures, but by the time I got there, it was almost to the top. Then a beam of light suddenly appeared over here on the right side, and going from the very top of this temple over to my right, up at about a 30-degree angle. And I just thought to myself, what the heck is that? And then I heard Thor's voice. He said, this is Commander Thor, and we are communicating with people in the sub-basement of this building. I'm the commander of a large fleet of ships that are placed around the planet. And then he showed me what that looked like. And by the way, I was shocked to hear the word commander, because by that time I still didn't know exactly who Thor was. Here's the vision that I saw, as close as I can render it. Just the same types of UFOs all over the planet right now that are cloaked, and they do several things, among them protecting us from the bad guys. So now I knew that Thor was someone of high authority, but I didn't know exactly who he was. I also saw in the sub-basement a man at a control center, and it looked like 1970s technology or 80s technology. He was relaying information to several people standing behind him. I got it as the light was sending the information. In fact, I knew that it was the light, and they do not use radio waves because light is better and faster. So they use light to send the information through the antenna down to the basement to this equipment. And then there was a translator there, and all he would do was, push a few buttons or something, and then he'd have the translation, share that information with a few men standing behind him. Bizarre, I know. In 2012, while looking at tiny white lights around a tree in my yard one evening, I thought, I wonder what those things are. Now, I'd been seeing these since I was a little kid, and I never had the idea to wonder what they are. And Thor's voice says, why don't you ask them? And I just, I was a little bit shocked. I thought, well, gosh, everything does have a consciousness. If they do, maybe they can communicate with me. And yeah. And they did. And they told me that they are tree sprites. They tell the tree when to grow, when to leaf out, when to go dormant. And when that tree dies, they go on to another tree that would be a sapling. And I would notice every year that there's this etheric energy that would come out, and I would see a branch, and in the winter. So during the winter, I would see a branch go out a certain distance, and then in the spring, that branch would grow out to that distance exactly. And this happened, with several trees that I saw. And so it was like it's preparing it and telling it what to do, so to speak, that the energy. And it's pretty awesome. It's really awesome to look at. So in 2011, though, my friend and psychic Gail Larmer and I worked at a psychic research group one evening doing readings. On the way home at 10:30 p.m., we're each in our separate cars going our different ways. My cell phone rings, and it's Gail. She doesn't say hello, nothing. She just says, "Who the heck is Thor?" And I said, "Oh my gosh, I've never told anyone about my interactions with Thor." So I told her, relayed to her what I had experienced in the past, and she says, "Well, he wants you to contact him right now." Well, I had been very busy. I hadn't meditated for quite some time, and that's usually the time that he's able to contact me. So, of course, I got on it right away. But in the meantime, Gail then did some digging on the internet. She sent me the book Stranger at the Pentagon by Dr. Frank Stranges. Then the book simply disappeared. Could not find it anywhere. We looked everywhere in the house. But one day I was standing in my kitchen talking to my husband, and Thor's voice comes in my head, says, "Read the book." Well, I knew what book it was. And I said, "Well, I don't know where it is. I can't find it." And he said, "Go look under the one of the tables in the living room, and it is on top of a stack of books at the very bottom." And I said, "Well, I've already looked there before, but I'll go look again." And sure enough, it was there. So it was time to read it. In the book, Dr. Frank explains how he came into contact with Valiant Thor and had a long-standing relationship with him, as did other people. Thor even saved Dr. Frank's life twice, and he took him on board his craft, Victor 1, more than one time. And there's a book called Stranger at the Pentagon by Dr. Stranges. And then Dr. Stranges wrote several things, but another one that he wrote was Outwitting Tomorrow. And Thor collaborated with him on this book. But there are some other books that have come out recently and they say they're from or by Thor, that they're direct channels from Thor, but they were actually written by Gray Barker in the 1950s or 60s. Okay. So whether Thor channeled that information to Gray Barker or what, I don't know, but it doesn't indicate that in the books, giving him credit. It just says it's by Thor. And I think these are unauthorized books, by the way. But anyway, Thor met with President Eisenhower and Vice President Nixon. According to Dr. Stranges, Thor offered assistance in the form of technology and health cures. In fact, he said, no more disease for the earth, no more. And in exchange, we had to stop using nuclear weapons and fighting each other. After 3 years, Eisenhower finally returned to him and said, no, we can't do that because it would destroy our economy. Does that sound like the government? Yeah, it does. So according to Dr. Strange's, Thor is a created being. He has no fingerprints. He has no navel either. He can appear and disappear at will. He's a very, very high vibration being, close to angelic. His craft, Victor 1, is currently at Lake Mead. Now, some people think it's inside the lake, and I do not, because I have visited it several times astrally, and I see it on the ground, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a minute. So 1957, there were some photos taken. There was a UFO meeting at Howard Menger's home in New Jersey where Val Thor, Jill, and Dawn appeared. The photographer, August C. Roberts, was an Army photographer, and he thought he was sneaking pictures of Thor, but I remote viewed this, and I know that Thor knew that was going on. They are the only pictures of him. This is strange because I saw this earlier when I was just reviewing this presentation. I never put this here. I did not put this here. This has got to be a message in some fashion. So I've got to dig up and find out what that is, what that means, the letter. This is one of the photos. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but in the center, this man that's looking down at papers, that is Val Thor. And then the man to his left is his brother, Don. And the woman to his left is Jill, one of his crew members, senior crew members. Here's a little closer picture of them. And this is a different one with Don in the center, Thor at the right. Now, keep in mind, when I first saw Thor on the wall, he had a helmet on so I couldn't see his hair, but his face was the same. It was definitely the same. And it looks exactly the same as here. He's an immortal. They live a long, long time. I don't even know if they die. So during this time period from the 50s and 60s, there were several people who claimed to have been contacted by extraterrestrials, and most of them were from Venus. Some claimed that they were taken on trips to outer space, such as Buck Nelson from Mountain View, Missouri. He wrote a book called My Trip to Mars, the Moon, and Venus. And this is actually one of his posters from one of his events. And here's Buck on his property, on his farm in Mountain View. And here are some people attending one of his events. They would just come out, drive across the country, bring their own food with them, and camp out on the property and listen to people talk about UFOs. That's the way it was done. And then here, George Van Tassel, Frank Scully, and George Williamson are at Giant Rock. And here, this is Howard Menger. He was married to an extraterrestrial. He met with this woman and later married her sister. People were actually much more open about the subject at that time. They didn't start clamping down on it until the 70s. But this is a photo of a craft taken by Howard. You can find these on the internet. They're pretty popular. And of course, we had all of these men as well who were well known as contactees. And then I found another contactee. I did research online. I found Craig Campobasso. He's a Hollywood producer, casting director, and now author recently. I asked him to be a guest on my radio program in 2012, and he and I had many long conversations. He made the short film Stranger at the Pentagon, which is actually a teaser. They'll do like a 20-minute short film in order to get big production companies interested in doing a full-length film. He's still working on getting a full-length film done, again called Stranger at the Pentagon. Craig was good friends with Dr. Frank Stranges, who lived only a mile away from him. They spent a lot of time together. They used to sit out on a big hill close to Hollywood, and they would sit and watch the UFOs. If Dr. Frank was there, the UFOs showed up. And one day, Craig got up and he's going into his kitchen and he sees Valiant Thor and Vice Commander Teal sitting on his couch. Now, they were transparent. So they were there in an astral projection. They were projecting themselves there, just sitting there watching him. They never spoke to him, he said. But they would appear on multiple occasions. Sometimes he'd get a telepathic message. But then Craig would go talk to Dr. Stranges, who had a direct communication with Thor, and get answers to questions. So That's how the communication was. That's how Thor wanted it. Dr. Frank would speak to Thor, then he would pass the information on to Craig while he was writing the screenplay. After the screenplay was completely approved by Thor, he began to put the short film together on a very thin budget. He got a bunch of friends together, video and actors and editors and all of that. All of those people were just on board to create this thing for no pay. um, and then I had Craig come to Kansas City and speak at an event that I hosted, and I showed his new film. And several audience members captured balls of light on the stage, and they got pictures of them. They could see them with the naked eye. I could see them with the naked eye. I stood in the back to see what would happen because Craig said that sometimes when he's doing a talk, Thor just shows up and he's sitting in the front row or something, and it's just kind of funny. So we also felt Thor's presence. I knew he was there. I know when he's around, and he was definitely there watching. And I'm gonna show you this real short film trailer.
We've heard of your arrival from many sources.
I feel something horrible's gonna happen to you.
This proposal is quite extraordinary.
Capital City's president is considering signing an agreement with them for their technology. Earth is in grave danger.
We've heard of your...
So, if you want to see that short film, you can go to Craig's site or just look up Stranger at the Pentagon and you'll find it and you can watch that. So I'm having, of course, ongoing contact with him. He's always available if I need him. If I'm very ill or near death, he will be there. One time I had bronchitis, which turned into pneumonia, and I was having a really hard time breathing. And I just felt like I was starting to slip out of my body. And so I asked Thor to come in, and I had the message to stand up. So I stood up out of my chair and I was facing the kitchen, and this gold ball of light appears in the middle of the kitchen. It looked like a flaming gold ball and came right towards me, went right into my chest, into my lungs. I was instantly healed. Instantly. That was absolutely Thor who did it. He does not, unfortunately, fix minor things for me, but if it's life or death, he will step in because obviously I still have some more work to do. Another thing that he has done is protect me when I'm in grave danger. And once, a few years ago, I went to go speak at a conference in Boonville, Missouri. I took my sister with me. So we each have our own bed in this place, in this hotel. It was an older hotel. And as soon as we actually got off of the elevator and approached the door, I sensed a presence, but I'm thinking it was spirits. So I just said to my sister, I think this place is haunted. She goes, yeah, I think so too. It's no big deal. We just go in, go to bed. And like 2 seconds after I got in bed, this tall dog man, transparent, but definitely, clearly a dog man, which I, up to that point, didn't believe existed, came through the door, walked right through it, didn't open the door, jumped on my bed and growled and was right in my face with these huge fangs. I jumped out of bed on the opposite side, ran to the end. My sister says, what's going on? I said, well, you're not going to believe this, but there's a dog man in here with us. She goes, well, where is he? And I'm looking around, don't see him. And I look down and I see there's these two claw hands with long claws coming out from under the bed, headed towards my ankles. So I stepped back and I thought, okay, I've got to call Thor on this one. And I just sent a message. I said, help. And instantly his craft was there. I could see it remote viewing, and he sent a beam of white light down, sent it through me first, and then expanded it out throughout the entire hotel, and it pushed this negative being away. It pushed it out. The white light will always do that, so remember that. It pushed him out, and I've never seen one since. So thank you, Thor, for that, because I did not like that experience whatsoever. Now his ship, he's taken me on it several times, showed me the craft. I go in my astral body or remote viewing, which I've done several times, and met with several people there. On the outside of the craft, there's a shield around it to conceal it, so you don't know it's there until you walk right up to it, like within 3 feet, and then you could see this blue shimmer. And it just looks like something out of a science fiction movie. Then you just step through that shimmer, and you can clearly see the craft sitting there. And that's how I get there. I remote view or astral travel, and I'm standing there, and then I walk in to that, and they know I'm there instantly. I've been taken on some tours of the ship. There are 3 levels that I was shown. On the main level, it's a large lounge area, and there are private bedrooms there, restrooms, eating areas, things like that. On the top level is a huge greenhouse with lots of food growing. I get the sense that these are vegetarians because I didn't see anything to do with meat there. In the center part of the ship, to the lower part, is a large open area with a railing around it. And I walked around, I went into this area. This is a propulsion system area. And I was able to walk around entirely around this railing, but I could see through the top of the craft, open to the air, and below the craft is also open to the air. It was explained to me that this is how their propulsion system works. It utilizes anti-gravity ion energy, and a byproduct of that is photons. So this is one reason why there are lit up, while these UFOs are lit up so you can see them, is because that's the propulsion system that they're using creates photons, and they can't stop that. They can't hide that. So people ask all the time, well, why are they being so obvious? Well, that's why. So they use 2 forms of propulsion, though. One when in space and another when near a planet. The one near the planet is the one that creates the photons. And this is kind of a description of the energy that I could see looking in there. And it's also magnetic. When they turn it on, that's what it looks like. So my assignment, they said, is to help raise consciousness of the planet. So I asked, why me? And he said, because I've developed an adequate level of consciousness and vibration. There are others like you that we seek out. So he told me there are others, but didn't tell me how many. And I asked how to do this. He said, well, teach classes to help people access their psychic center, write articles, create a magazine, host conferences, publish books, my own and others, do lectures, start a radio podcast network in order to reach more people with messages that will help their spiritual development. So I have done all of those things. And these are some of the books. These are ones that I've written that I recommend to help raise consciousness. And then I have several others as well. Winged Aliens would also be recommended. That's about winged creatures, winged cryptid creatures that I believe are actually ETs or interdimensional beings. And then I publish books by other people, and here are a few of them. And everybody who has come to me to be published is a high energy, very aware person, and there's a reason for this info to get out. The most recent being Meeting Wallace by Larry Costa. This book is amazing. And of course, Mindy Tautfest, her book Dying to Meet Them is also amazing. Her entire life changed after an NDE experience. And then I've done 15 conferences so far, and we do now the annual XCon under the UNX network. And that is held in Springfield, Missouri. And we always have a good lineup of speakers and events. So this is kind of a timeline of Thor in present years. Now, I believe that Thor has been here for a long, long time. I do not believe that the first time he came here was in 1957. I think that was his first contact with a sitting president. But yeah, I don't think he's telling the whole story. So he visited the Pentagon, and then Dr. Frank Strange's, and then he introduced himself to me in 85. In between there, he introduced himself to a number of people, and some have written books about it. 2012, I found out who Thor was, and then from 2012 to now, I've been doing all of these things. Now, people ask, how do I get all of this stuff done? Well, the thing is that everything, if it's right, and if it's a positive, high vibration thing to do, it comes in very easily. And in fact, now we've got over 30 shows on the KUNX network, and every one of these hosts are very aware, very awake, and they're about raising consciousness, even if they don't personally know it, but most of them do. And they've come in, and it's just amazing how this works. And also the writers, I've got a couple of new books coming out by different writers this year that are going to be amazing. So, it's because of Thor, basically. His messages for mankind are: quit using nuclear weapons. He said, we will not allow further use and will shut them down because they affect multiple dimensions. They cause tears between dimensions. So whenever we use a nuclear weapon or do nuclear test, it shocks open dimensions. And this is a major concern. It's affecting their planets, which is our planet in our space, which is hard to fathom, but that's the case. And this could be one explanation for the increase in paranormal activity around the world. UFO sightings and everything else, Sasquatch sightings, everything. This is increasing. And if you talk to any investigator, they're going to tell you the same thing. They're getting more and more reports. And it's not just lights in the sky, it's close encounters. Okay. And it's an ET standing in your room. It's talking to you. That's what's going on. So they say that they will make themselves known to everyone very soon, despite your government's unwillingness to disclose our presence. And he is telling me that this is going to happen within the next 8 months to 2 years. They're going to make themselves known all around the planet at the same time. A lot of people are getting the same message. So he says, in order to fully understand us and others like us, mankind must raise their level of consciousness. Nuts and bolts left brain scientists will never experience us. So that includes the skeptics out there who just make a blanket statement, that's not possible because I don't believe it is, and therefore it isn't, without doing any investigations. Stanton Friedman was always very bothered by that. And so are all of us who are investigators. So how can others experience Thor? You need to have an open mind. Got to learn how to meditate, because the level of consciousness can only be achieved by meditating. If you don't know how and you want to learn, there are, you can get on YouTube, you can learn some things. I'm teaching some classes, other people are teaching classes. Learn how to meditate effectively and be ready for it, because when you ask, they will come. Send a telepathic message out that you'd like to have contact, and be patient. My first contact, besides Thor, and that happened right around 2012, 2013. I was having some feet problems, and my feet hurt so bad, I ended up not being able to walk on them. I'd been to foot doctor, podiatrist, regular doctor. Nobody could figure out what the problem was, but I knew it was something serious. So one day I just sent out this message, and you might want to remember what this is. If there are any benevolent beings who would like to assist with this problem I'm having. Please come in while I'm asleep. And then fall asleep. So you do your meditation first and then fall asleep. So that's what I did. A little while later, I feel a terrible pinch in my left calf, and it felt like a needle going all the way into the bone. Woke me up, and I look, and at the foot of my bed are two gray ETs about 4.5 feet tall. One of them had his hands out like this at my feet. And my first reaction, of course, was to scream and throw the covers over my head. And then I realized, that weirdly wouldn't do any good. And by the way, I did ask him to come in and help me. So I took the covers off. I couldn't see him anymore. But what had happened was I lowered my vibration to the point where I couldn't see them because of my fear at the moment. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to go back to sleep. And I just said, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So you can still keep working on me. I still felt their presence. The next day, I had absolutely no pain in my feet and I could walk. Perfect. No problem since. It's amazing. They will help you if you ask. So, thank you. And if you want more information about me, just go to margiekay.com. And if you want to see some really good shows on paranormal, go to unxnetwork.com. We also have the monthly magazine, and there's a free membership and a paid membership. We also have YouTube videos. And I will stop sharing and take questions.
Cool. Can you hear me, Kay or Margie?
I can hear you.
Oh, you can. Okay. So I'll ask in the room. Anyone, any questions for Margie in the room? And they'll say it, and if you can hear them, I'll just let it go. And if you can't hear them, let me know and I'll repeat it.
Okay.
Oh, we got a question here. Yep.
Yeah, I read the book you're talking about, and I seem to understand a couple things from that. And one is that on the spacecraft themselves is a level, and it could be the mid-level, that has a room for them doing worship. Does that sound familiar?
I did not see that.
Okay.
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, it's like a gathering area. It takes up most of one of the levels. And the second thing was that they said that Jesus was universal throughout the galaxy. And
He has also not said that to me. Yeah, I think, here's what I think with these, excuse me, these beings like Thor, who are extremely elevated in intelligence and consciousness. Talk to people about things they understand or they're familiar with or they know. And since I am not a religious person, I'm an ethical person and a moral person, but I'm just not religious. That has just never been discussed. They haven't showed me that it could very well be. It just hasn't been part of my experience.
I gave that book I have two minister friends in my top three, and both of them were kind of shaking their head like, yeah, it could be true or probably is true. So I don't, I didn't know where to take that necessarily, but I just thought it fascinating because, he said that Jesus was, through the entire universe. So I gave the book to my best of the two friends, and we've had conversations about that, but I think on his part, I think he thinks it's totally believable. And, just interesting, the concept and the fact that on that particular Victor 1 was a spacecraft that he traveled in on. That as a middle, one of the floors is got this large meeting area where they get together as a group. And I don't know if it's meditation or whatever, but they said we get together regularly, kind of like a Sunday church service, and, do meditation or whatever they do. But I thought, that kind of makes sense, kind of like we have churches to a degree, that they would have a gathering space on one of the floors, to do their meditation, whatever you want to call it, and get in touch with, I don't know how to explain it really. It just seems like they had a universal agreement about with the nuclear weapons and that sort of thing. But it was fascinating, and I found it a fascinating book to read, and that's why I gave it to one of my minister friends. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's my experience. And we talk about Stranger at the Pentagon. That was, that was cool reading in and of itself, how they could pass through walls. And he was in the back seat when Frank got in his car in the West.
Yep.
And, I don't know what it says. It showed me, acceptance in the entire universe of each planet, if you will, or existence or dimension. And I thought that's pretty cool that, there's some commonality there. So, and with, what we went through here with the, nuclear war threat, Cold War, if you will, it's nice to know on some level that we're being looked at and taken care of, with his group. So.
Yeah, he said they with their federation, they have rules, and one of them is no direct interference with mankind. But there is this exception with the nuclear weapons because of how it is affecting other dimensions. And the fact that they went over multiple air bases and shut down their systems in the 60s too. I think the 2000s that this has happened multiple times was a message that this can happen, that they have control if they need to.
Yeah, they basically stop the control at the central place where they controlled, let's say, a field of 12 missiles or whatever. Everything went down and they couldn't get back up. And that message, like you just said, was kind of like, we're watching out for you guys, even if you're not watching out for yourself. So
yeah, before you destroy yourselves and the planet. Exactly. Do you have something, Jer?
Yeah, I got 3 questions in the chat. I guess we got a comment here. So can you hold on your comment?
Yeah.
I'll do one question in the chat and then we'll do the one comment here. First question in the chat. Question about propulsion. It seems that the propulsion creates a magnetic field as you described it. Do you think that would result in someone seeing a craft over water, that the craft would appear to be sucking up water from underneath due to the magnetic field and vortices this field creates?
Yes. The answer is yes.
Well, that was simple. So,
Yeah.
oh, do you have more on that to say or no?
Nope, that's it. I just, I see it. It's either a yes or no. It's a yes. That's
Okay, comment I have is that I was a member of Dr. Frank's group, and I'm also a friend of Craig Campobassos, and I still communicate with Julie by email and with Craig. And Dr. Frank and said many times that he would also talk a lot about religion and about Jesus, etc. And at the meeting, he took we had a questionnaire and asked how many people, and there were a religious background. About 75% of the people at the meetings were pastors or ministers at the meetings. And he did make a comment that Vice Commander Teal had a wonderful voice, and she would sing a worship song every morning aboard the ship. And I've actually got some of the prayers with me from Commander Bell. I got 2 prayers with me from Commander Bell. I also got some comments about what Commander Bell said, who he actually is. You want me to read those out loud? Because I got the workbooks for the meetings. Dr. Frank would have 2 meetings a year out in Las Vegas at the Rio Hotel. And I went, like I said, I went to those from 1996 until 2008. And I talked with Dr. Frank several times. And I used to call him up and we'd talk back and forth about different things. So.
Well, I sure would like to communicate with you after the meeting sometime. If you would contact me by email, that'd be fantastic, because I'd like to talk to you some more about that.
Sure, okay.
Cool. Second question on the chat. Did he explain how life can exist on Venus? Can humans live there?
Apparently, yes.
It's on the edge he lived on the edge.
Now, it might be inside the planet. They might not be outside where it's inhospitable. But, we're looking at the moon and the sun and all of our planets and their moons through the eyes of our scientists telling us what the truth is. Yeah. And as we know, with the moon and Mars photographs and things that people have gone through very meticulously and found structures. We're not being told the whole story. And also some atmosphere. There's some atmosphere on Mars, apparently. And, we're led to believe that it's a total red planet. It's barren. There's nothing going on there. But there's polar ice caps. And yeah, I don't know who to believe, because we can't physically go there to look to see. And also, a lot of the times when we have gone somewhere with the probe, it has been knocked out by some force and it disappeared. A Russian probe, and we've sent a couple that have been, as soon as we get to Mars, they're gone. So something is doing that. Somebody else is there, some intelligence that doesn't want us to see it. And I also understand that we've been told not to go back to the moon. And so that's why we've had a delay in getting back to the moon. I cannot separate right now my left brain from my right to remote view. Although when I remote view, I do see structures on the moon and Mars. I've seen that quite a few times. And on the backside of the moon, especially. And then there's some solar panels and a base on the right upper side at if you go in the center of the moon, go up at a 45-degree angle. If you're looking through high-power binoculars or a telescope, you can see flashes of light, and that's because of the solar panels that are right there. And I know there's a base at that particular location. But yeah, it's hard to know.
Cool. Another kind of two-part question from the chat. You said the increase in paranormal is due to atomic testing, etc. Is that specifically because of portals being opened or something else?
It's because of portals being opened.
Okay.
Yes. I'm working on 5 portal investigations right now. I'm also getting ready to do a film on portals, and then there's going to be 2 more after that. So 3 films on portals, because and I think that they're opening because of things that we're doing. And it's not good. It's not good because we don't have control over it. And once something has free access to come in and out, in each of these cases, there's some very weird stuff going on that's not normal. And I stuck my hand in one once. Oh my gosh. We got film of this in Weldon Spring, Missouri. Putting my hand in, and in the footage, you can see my hand just go straight and come back. But there's a second arm and hand that's wavy that goes above it. And it is the most bizarre thing. It's not open all the time. I can see when it's open, and then I can point it out to somebody else and they see it. It's like a blue shimmery wall. But there are also other types of portals, that swirling portals that look like windows. And these are just gaining strength. Some of them are man-made. You know that spiral temple I showed you pictures of earlier? That has created a major vortex and a portal for at least a 2-3 mile radius around it. And my house is 6 blocks from there. So I'm experiencing bizarre stuff. Animals that I can't identify, that they're all black and they're solid 3D with, sometimes with features, walking in and out of a portal on my deck. We've seen gigantic UFOs pass right over my house, headed right for that temple. Then they get to the temple, you can't see them anymore. They've gone into a portal there, gone into another dimension. It just goes on and on. But yeah, we have opened up portals, and by doing certain things we shouldn't be doing, not only the nuclear, but also building buildings that create portals. And who knows what we're letting in that is messing with us. And then also, a lot of these people that disappear, these missing people, especially like the 411 missing people, is this one of the answers? Are they walking into a portal and not coming back?
Yeah, another question from the same person. When you went to that planet, did you have any sense of how far away it was or where?
No, I did not. I did not. But I asked the question after. I asked him, I said, where are you from? And he said, the Little Orion Nebula, the brightest star to the left. And I didn't even know there was a Little Orion Nebula. I looked it up online, and sure enough, there's this big nebula, and then up in the upper left-hand corner, there's a little nebula that's attached to it. But, it's like a little island with an attachment. And there's a super bright star there on the left side, exactly how he showed me in a vision. And so their planet is connected to that star.
Cool. Another question here in the room?
Yes, what city do you live in?
Kansas City, Missouri.
Another easy one.
Chiefs fan.
Yeah. Another question from the chat. Have you heard about implants or tracking devices through Thor or RV experiences?
Not through Thor, but remote viewing, yes. I've remote viewed a number of people. A lot of people have implants, and I've found that it's best to leave them alone, because whether they're military or ET or both, it seems that if you have ET, you're also going to have military, because they're keeping an eye on us and watching and seeing the connection. But don't take them out, because somebody will come back and put two in its place.
Yeah, and I've actually got a question. I was talking about this presentation last month, and someone here in the room had said, they said, well, Valiant Thor, that's not actually his name, that's his title. And I'd read Stranger in the Pentagon. I hadn't heard that before. Is Valiant Thor his title, or is that his name, or what? Do you know anything about that?
I've only known that to be his name. And, he kind of goes by Val Thor.
Yeah, okay. I got a question here. Is CERN bad because of portal issues?
Oh, yes. Yeah, I remote viewed it. They are creating portals, and they're doing it for nefarious reasons. Somebody, I didn't have a clue about this until recently. Somebody told me that there is a connection with the occult and CERN. And I'm like, what? You got to be kidding. These are scientists. Why would they do that? Well, sure enough, online, you can find a video of their opening ceremony, and they've got an idol up there, set up there. It's up, they're wearing robes, they're using all these occult symbols. And apparently where this is located is called the devil's portal, or the entrance to the devil, or something weird like that. And I'm like, no, this is not possible. Well, their ceremony was about bringing the devil forward. So I said, okay, I'm going to remote view this. They are opening portals by doing this purposely. Just because they're high-tech scientists doesn't mean they're not crazy.
Yeah, try telling them that and see what they say.
They'd probably come after me. So I'm not calling them and telling them.
Yeah. Anything else in the chat or in the room? Questions, comments in the room? Oh, we got another question here.
It's talked about big changes are coming in the next 8 months, I think, till a year. And there's going to be some disclosure regarding what we've been talking about. Do you think that's going to happen, or is that kind of conjecture at this point?
I'm feeling like it is going to happen, and I'll tell you why. It's not only because I feel the energy of it, and I see a vision of craft making themselves visible all over, and they're not in a threatening manner at all. They want to let people know they're here to help us, but they need people to know that we're not alone in the universe, and we've got to get with the program. But also because I do a lot of personal readings for people, and most of the people coming to me the last 6 months or so are very high vibration beings, and they're high consciousness level. They're very aware and awake, and they're also what we call star seeds or star children. They came in at the same time about 3,000 years ago from Lyra, from the Pleiades, and they all seem to be converging and planned their incarnations throughout all of that time to this incarnation. This one is where the big thing is going to happen, and they are here to help other people deal with the change, deal with this knowledge that we're not alone. And everyone I talk to, and I see that for them, and I tell them, and they're like, yeah, I knew something like that. I just can feel it. And they're not shocked. They're ready to do it. You know, they're ready to let people know that these are benevolent beings. They're not here to wipe us off the planet. And they'll help when they're asked.
Yeah, they don't need to wipe us off the planet. We'll probably do a pretty good job at that ourselves before they do. But anyways, another question from the chat. Has he talked about solar flares happening now today?
He has not. I have not asked him about that.
Okay. Another question is directed at you. Do you feel your psychic abilities were from alien contact at first when you were a child?
I have a sneaking suspicion, yes, because although both of my parents were intuitive, they didn't have my abilities at all. And since I had heard Thor's voice since I was a baby, and I actually had my first UFO experience at about 9 or 10 months, which I didn't. Well, I had recalled the incident, that there was an incident, but I didn't know everything that had happened. I didn't know there were ETs involved until I had a regression in the early 90s, and I saw what happened. So I had been involved with ETs from the beginning, and I'm pretty sure I can feel his presence and see that he's been involved with me from the beginning.
Cool. Got a really excited question here in the room, way in the back.
Oh, no.
You were what?
I was agreeing with her in the infant.
Oh, I thought you were saying you had a big question. Okay, so I'm sorry, but
The contact at 10 months, because, you know.
oh yeah. We have a person who's contacted at 10 months in the room, so that was about. So, any other questions or comments in the room? And I'm not seeing anything on chat either. Oh, here we go. Does he appear in 3D now?
Thor can appear to me in 3D. But usually it's transparent. He would be transparent or in some other form like a ball of light, which twice he's appeared to me as a ball of light. But I knew it was him because I knew his energy.
Right. Cool. Oh, and yeah, you'd mentioned something about him possibly being immortal. And I'm not disputing that, but I had heard that his race or his species, or however you want to say it, actually probably lived to be around 800 or 900 years old. Do you have any sense for that or no?
No, because his group, if you will, his species are one thing, but he is elevated above that. So he's a created being, and just like I said earlier, more like an angel, angelic in vibration, like an archangel.
Gotcha.
And he is in contact with angels. This book that I'm working on, well, that we just produced by Larry Costa, he's been in contact with his angel named Wallace. And while I was first talking with Larry on the phone about publishing the book, his angel that he was in contact with appeared to my right. I was sitting in this chair, appeared to my right and said, I want you to do this book. And then Thor appeared to my left and he said, yes, I confirm that. You need to do this book. You need to put your book on hold, mine, and get his book out. So he's in contact with angels too.
Yeah, we have someone here who wants to kind of comment, jump off what you just said. So,
I heard word that our appendix at one time was more or less somehow attached or connected somehow to our liver back in the day, which extended human life. And then that was disrupted and shortened so that we have short life. As she's a healer and intuitive, what does she think about that information?
were you able to hear that?
I heard part of it. I think it was about our DNA being altered.
Appendix.
Yeah, she's heard that in our past, our appendix was connected to our pancreas
Liver.
or our liver, and somehow to expand our life, and somehow that get disrupted to shorten our lives.
I do see, and I remember viewed this years ago, a change in DNA that was something was taken out of our DNA. I don't believe that that was done by Val Thor's group. It feels like it was more the Greys or the Reptilians that did that. And that was a long, long time ago. A long time ago. The appendix, let me just remote view that real quick here. Yeah, I do see a separation. Yeah, they did do that. Interesting.
Got a couple more questions in the chat. First question is, what do you think was the reason the dog man werewolf appeared?
God, I have no idea. Maybe just to let me know that it's there, that it's real, that it is a real thing in case I did investigations on it, because I wasn't thinking about it. I had just, you watch those monster shows on TV and stuff, and, I didn't believe it at all. But yeah, I just think he wanted me to know it was real.
Got another question. Does he want to be considered a celebrity?
No, he doesn't. Talking about Val Thor, no.
I'm assuming, yeah.
That's why he only contacts certain people. He is not going to make himself known to the general public or be on TV or internet or anything like that.
I had to sign a notarized statement saying that I would not reveal anything I learned at the meetings.
Oh.
Before I joined the inner circle of Dr. Frank's group back in 1996. By the way, I found the exact quote here out of the last proceedings manual, which is a quote from Val Thor as to his age. If you want me to read it, it's just one paragraph.
Yes.
Okay. Here's what Val Thor says. Who do you think I am? He says, who do you think I am? He says, yes, I am an angel. I am a created being. These angels who have been created by the master himself never die. We reach a certain period on earth time and then cease the aging process. It would completely throw you for a loop if I were to relate to you the actual secret of my age, as well as that of several members of my staff. However, I will not do so at this time. Vice Commander Teal would not appreciate it if I were able to relate her age to you. Most were created a very long time ago, and a few have parents. And then he goes on to say, it's contrary to what your Bible says about angels being not married, that angels are not married or cannot be married. Because some in the Bible, angels are not married. So, yeah. He said your Bible is not 100% accurate in that manner. This goes on and on, there's several pages, but each time I go to a meeting, I get a workbook from Dr. Frank, and it would be his conversation with the commander. And it would list conversations and the questions and answers.
Okay, so now I know the whole reason that we were having this meeting today is so I could meet you. Yeah, I definitely contact me.
All right.
Yeah, most people agree meeting Steve is quite an experience. So, but, we got another question here in the room.
You're kind of an artist at heart, and I've been looking at your background. I wonder if there's any meaning in it.
In my art?
Behind your head.
The art and behind you.
Oh, the artwork. Oh,
Yeah,
this is, okay, the third eye. Eye of Horus.
Yeah.
That's the meaning, because I use my third eye. And I train people to use theirs.
Comments or questions in the room? Oh, we have got another question over here.
I'm done, I promise.
No, we got time, so we're good.
Do you believe or have you seen that there was at some point in history a cosmic war between good and evil, black and white?
Yes. There's been an ongoing cosmic war, and there's one going on right now. In fact, I literally saw 3D with my naked eye them fighting one day in 2013. I was headed to speak at a conference in Piedmont, Missouri, and we got lost just driving in my state of Missouri. Somehow ended up on the other side of the state. We were late, And I'm driving down the highway next to the Mississippi River, and I had another investigator with me. And all of a sudden, I felt this energy coming from the left side. And here I looked, just glancing while I'm driving, glance over, I see these 3 stars that shouldn't have been there, because I know the night sky, being an investigator. I knew they shouldn't be there. And I told this other investigator, I said, I'm feeling a really weird energy over here from the left, and it's kind of like at those stars. Could you keep an eye on that? So he opened the sunroof of my car and kept an eye. And a few minutes later, and this is on a super, super dark road with no other vehicles around. And here comes, he says, oh, uh-oh. And I said, what do you mean, uh-oh? He goes, that thing has moved now to our back, to the back of us. And it's getting closer. I'm like, oh no. And so I sped up the car, and I'm trying to drive on this super dark road, but also speeding up because I can feel this, like it's chasing us or something. And then he's looking out the sunroof and he says, oh my gosh, he says, there's something else ahead of us. And it was shooting missiles or something at this other one behind us. And the one behind us started shooting at it. And I only saw a little bit of that because I'm driving and I'm trying to drive to get away from them. And then all of a sudden, the one behind us, he says, oh, that's gone now. They must have taken it out. They shot back and forth several times. Well, the next thing I know, we are an hour and a half late to our destination and don't know what happened in that missing time. So I remote viewed it and I got a regression, and I found out that a craft landed and we were both taken on the craft. And all the beings were very tall with white robes. They were very kind and benevolent. And then we were both taken back. But whatever that was behind us was the bad guys. The ones in front were the ones that had landed, and we had this experience going on this craft.
Got another question in the chat here. Are there beings that are posing as humans in people's lives?
Oh, yes. Yes. It's kind of like what you would call there are 2 things: a possession, where they will possess a human, and you can watch this. If it happens to somebody and their personality changes, it's usually the bad guys that do that. And I have actually seen reptilians step out of a person, smirk at me, tell me there's nothing you can do about this, and step back into the person. And the person is completely unaware that this creature is possessing them. I've also seen a number of times, you might watch for this, on TV when the person's being interviewed or they're doing a commercial and their eyes switch to a reptilian eye and go back. And I've seen that on some very, very well-known people that I don't want to say who they are, but people you wouldn't even expect. I've seen that happen. I've stood talking to people in person and that has happened, and I realized that they have got a reptilian in them. Now, the other thing is hybrids. There are hybrids walking among us that look very human or enough human that they can pass, and you would just think, well, they've got a little bit different bone structure, or they just look a little bit different than us, or their eyes are something very unusual, like super clear, or something like that. And there's something really weird that happens with hybrids that I'll tell you. It also has to do with the pupils, but it's something different. I discovered it a few years ago while I was having, we were doing a networking event where, they do this round table, everybody sits in a chair, talks for 5 minutes across the table, and then you move to a new person. So I saw the first one, you're close to the person and you're looking at him right across the table. His pupils changed to squares and then went back. And I'm like, what just happened? And they changed to squares again and went back. And he's talk. And so he moves on. And then a few more people down, one of them changed to a half moon with 3 points at the top, like part of a star at the top and a half moon. And it stayed that way and stayed that way and stayed there. And then it went back to normal. And so by the time I had seen like 3 that night, and then since then I've seen a number of others. So I asked my guides, what is going on here? And they said those are hybrids. They're part human and part ET. And they're here to have this human experience.
Cool. Got a couple people thanking you. Got a question in the room, but before that, I got another question online. Are there shape-shifting reptilians?
Yeah. Yeah, and they can shapeshift into anything. They could shapeshift into a human or another creature so that you think you're just looking at it like a dog or a wolf or something in it, and it's a reptilian.
Gotcha.
Don't trust them. Don't trust anything they say. I know some people have said they've had good experiences with them, but I have not.
Are you familiar with the document called, it's been nicknamed 47 pages from the DIA?
I've heard of it, but I have not looked at it.
Okay. Second question, are you aware of a book called Skinwalkers at the Pentagon? Skinwalkers
Yes.
at the Pentagon.
Yes, I heard of that as well, and I have not read that. I did read the original Skinwalker book by the family that lived on Skinwalker Ranch, and that's when I realized that the portal we were seeing at our house, like a 4-pane window, was true because they had seen the same thing.
Okay, Skinwalkers at the Pentagon was told about an investigation by government people and scientists of the Skinwalker Ranch. And I thought you'd be interested to know that some of them, after they got back home, back east, at least one of them saw a dog man or a wolf man in his backyard.
The creatures like that can follow you. And there's been a history of people at Skinwalker Ranch who have visited there, and then they go home and they're having poltergeist activity. They're seeing weird creatures. They're, being terrorized. The family's being terrorized by some very powerful entity. And yeah, so a lot of people have asked me if I've gone to Skinwalker Ranch, and I will not go there. In fact, I've gone to the state before. As soon as I cross that state line, I feel this very powerful negative energy. And so I'm not physically going to go there, but I have remote viewed that ranch several times. And I saw the vortex portal there years before they mentioned it on TV, and found it using all this electronics means. So yeah, there's definitely a major portal there.
We've got a couple questions in the chat. First one is, do the reptilians live underground in Earth?
Yes, they do. Deep underground in big, huge caves.
Next question. Do you have any inside info on what's really happening at Skinwalker Ranch? And I don't know if you kind of covered that already or no.
Just what I said. I know that portal's there. I would not be messing with it.
Yep.
Yeah, by the way, there is it's either a UFO or something else that's manufactured. I'm telling you guys this for the first time. I have not put this in my blog or anything. I remote viewed, and I was told that there is something in the mesa that is providing an energy source to not only keep a portal open, but also send energy up, just like a pyramid does. A pyramid directs energy straight up. Okay. So the UFOs can come by, grab that energy, grab that power, and move on, and they don't have to land. So watch for that. I'm just waiting for this to come out, that they find something like that there that's very unusual, and it's been there for thousands of years. It's not anything new. It's been there a long time. It's also sending there's an energy coming out the side of the mesa. Also, and going to that the triangle area where the portal is, that is keeping that charged. They're sending a beam of energy there to keep it charged. So we'll see.
Questions in the room, questions in the room? You saying nope? Okay.
If you want to know about if they are among us, there was a quote that was given to Howard Mentor by one of the females that was at the UFO gathering. And here's what she said: a lot of our people are among you, mingling with you, observing and helping where they can. They are in all walks of life, working in factories, offices, banks. Some of them may be cleaning women, some of them may be garbage collectors, etc. But they're in all walks of life. That's a quote for one of the people that was at his UFO gathering back in 57.
Yeah, I heard that before, and I also recently heard that Walmart is a training ground for hybrids so that they can get used to our society. And so if you find some people working at Walmart that look a little strange, they're probably hybrids.
Well, Dr. David Jacobs in his book talked about that, where some of the humans were taking the hybrids to the stores and giving them money and having them purchase things at the stores. And I suppose it could have been Walmart, but like Dr. David Jacobs and Bud Hopkins put on a presentation about that years ago, where a lot of these hybrids were being trained on how to interact with society.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting stuff.
Okay, yeah, so I got another, we got two more questions in the chat. We're gonna have to wrap it up here shortly because we're almost out of time, but first is, can you say more about the pyramids in terms of who made them and their purpose?
Yeah, here's the thing. I've gone back 30,000 years and seen them. And but when I do that, the big pyramid, and they're all covered in this limestone that it's polished and it looks like marble. And then the top of the Great Pyramid is solid gold. And then there's a cap on the mid pyramid that's silver. And the third one is bronze. Obviously a very highly intelligent group, but it seems that they were staying there. They were living there. I see craft going in and out and traveling around the world and coming back. And it being a power center, an energy center, and created energy for the people there in the area, on the ground, but also sending beams of energy up for craft to grab onto and then move on. And it was a very peaceful place. But then later, around 3,000 years ago, this group came in from Lyra, and they were very tall, robed beings. And when they first came in, I keep seeing this over and over again, the thing they had to do, so their ships lands, they get out. They had to go over to the pyramid, the Great Pyramid, and touch the side. Just hold the side, and then they would get charged with energy and also knowledge. They would learn about our planet just by touching the Great Pyramid. It was wild, absolutely wild. And then at some point, humans came in and they left, but some decided to stay and reincarnate as human beings to have this experience.
Yeah, and really on that same topic too, do you know anything about pyramids that have not been discovered yet? Or anything to say about that?
There are a lot. I see them all over the world. They're everywhere. And they were put there to actually anchor and steady the energy of the earth. And there are some places where they're very small, where you wouldn't know that. But there are energy points in the earth. There's a theory that the earth is a dodecahedron, and there are certain points, 12 major points around the planet. Ley lines, if you will be crossing over these areas. One major one is near Miami at the Coral Castle. And that's a place to investigate if you ever get a chance to go there. This energy system balances the earth energy, keeps it in the right motion, keeps the poles steady, but then also they all send energy out. So these craft that are flying by and taking off super fast, they go by slow, they're grabbing some energy and then they'll take off real fast. And that's because they're just charged up.
Well, this has to be our last question because we're really short on time, but do the ETs know that they are hybrids?
Some of the humans do know, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them don't. But if I see that and they ask if they're a hybrid and I tell them yes, they're like, yeah, I thought so. Because, there's too many symptoms, too many things happening. They're usually very intelligent, usually very psychic. They have a high vibration and they're here, they're kind of, just relaxed people. They're benevolent and they want to help other people. So that's how you can tell who they are.
Very, 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 very last question. I promise. Right here. Right.
A lot of people have disappeared, civilizations disappeared, even like I was thinking of this little village disappeared. No trace.
Yeah. I have seen this. I've wondered this for a long time. I remote viewed the Maya. And what I saw was a group of Mayans got information that they could move to a higher dimension. And if they wanted to, they would have to be at a certain place at a certain time. And they had to do something that made music. So I think it was toning. And it opened a portal and they walked through the portal and they were gone. Now, some of the Mayans stayed behind, but most of them left. And I think that same thing has happened with different civilizations over time.
Cool. Well, I think that was a fantastic presentation online and in the room. Let's give Margie Kay a big round of applause.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for spending a couple hours with us. We certainly appreciate it. So everybody, we should be back here next month. Definitely going to do What's Up in Minnesota. Hopefully maybe we'll have Chris DePerno from New York. Not sure. We might have a video. Can't say it this time. But keep watching. Like I said, Facebook meetup and the other place that the email blast, and we'll let you know. Until then, back here again the second Saturday of next month. Have a fantastic month, everybody. Take care and keep your eyes on the skies. We're out of here. Have a good day.